Strange, isn't it? How something as simple as a night shower can stir up so much fear. You hear whispers from grandmothers, neighbors, even friends. Don't shower too late, or you might have a stroke. And maybe, just maybe you laughed the first few times, but the thought stayed with you, lingering like steam on a bathroom mirror, refusing to clear. The truth is, health rarely collapses all at once. It's more like water, slow, persistent, wearing down even the strongest stone. Not in loud crashes, but in quiet repetition. And that's why we're here, not to judge your habits, not to scare you with big words or dramatic warnings, but to look closely at what happens when a small choice becomes a long-term pattern. And when the body, gently at first, begins to protest, you see. I've met people who worked late into the night, came home exhausted, took a quick shower to rinse off the day, and never thought twice about it. And why would they? It felt harmless, even refreshing, but one day they woke up. Not quite right. Their balance felt off. Their words a little slow, not enough to panic, just enough to ignore. That's how it often begins, not with a fall to the floor, but with a glance in the mirror and a strange sense that something's shifted, and they wonder, was it the shower? Was it the late hour? Was it something I did? And more importantly, is it too late to undo it? Now let's be honest, showering at night doesn't cause a stroke. Not directly, not like flipping a switch, but in the quiet spaces of medicine, we've learned that it's rarely one thing. It's the buildup, the accumulation, late hours, stress, elevated blood pressure, cold water, fatigue. Each one a small stone in the pocket until you suddenly realize you're walking through water. And it's harder to breathe when the body's already tired, when the blood vessels are stiff from age, pressure, or long years of not listening. A sudden shift, like cold water against hot skin, can trigger changes, the kind you don't feel until they've already taken hold. It's not the water, it's not the hour. It's the context of your life wrapped around that moment. The truth is, stroke rarely comes as a surprise to the body. It sends signs, subtle ones, that we brush off as nothing, like waking up dizzy. But blaming the pillow, like forgetting a word, and blaming stress, like feeling cold after a shower and thinking it's just the weather. But the body remembers, and the body keeps count. I'm not here to tell you to stop showering at night, but I am here to ask, what else is happening around that moment? Are you rushing through your days, sleeping too little, eating too fast? Is your blood pressure climbing while your awareness stays still? Is your body asking for rest, and all you offer is routine? I once sat with a man in his early 50s. He was quiet, composed, thoughtful. He told me he'd never been sick. Not really, just a bit of tension in his neck, some headaches, trouble sleeping. He laughed when his wife said he should slow down. But one night, after a late shift, he stepped into the shower, and when he stepped out, his right hand wouldn't move the same. His smile felt crooked. He didn't collapse, he didn't faint. He just knew in that deep, unsettling way that something wasn't right. They caught the stroke early. He was lucky, but it wasn't the shower that caused it. It was everything that led up to that moment. And that's the truth most people don't want to hear. That illness isn't always about what happens in a single instant. It's about what's been happening quietly for years, like an old clock, off by just a second each day, until one morning, you look up and realize you've missed the train. You think you're fine. You walk through the day, answer calls, send messages, eat something quick between meetings, and when the sun sets, you tell yourself, just one more thing, then I'll rest. But rest never really comes, does it? Not the deep kind, not the kind your body truly asks for. We live in a world that rewards movement, constant motion, endless productivity. And somewhere along the way, we forgot how to pause. We learned to silence discomfort, to push through the headache, to ignore the tightness in our chest, to drink another coffee instead of listening to the trembling underneath. And when we finally slow down, when we step into the shower late at night, the body suddenly feels everything. The temperature shifts. The blood vessels expand or contract. The nervous system, already exhausted, tries to compensate, but sometimes it falters, not enough to break, just enough to crack something we didn't know was already fragile. You see, stroke doesn't need a grand reason. It doesn't need drama or trauma. Sometimes all it needs is the perfect storm. A tired brain, a spike in blood pressure, a sudden drop in body temperature, and a heart that's been carrying too much for too long. People often ask, is it really that dangerous to shower at night? And I tell them the truth. The act of showering isn't the danger. It's the timing, the condition of the body, the context. Imagine pouring cold water into a hot glass. It may not break, but if the glass has a small crack you didn't notice before, that's when it shatters. Late at night, your body is different. Your blood pressure naturally dips. Your heart slows down. Your muscles begin to release. It's preparing to heal, to rebuild. And then suddenly, cold water, bright light, standing on a slippery floor, your system jolts back into alertness. That jolt may seem small, but to a fragile heart or overworked blood vessel, it can be enough. There was a woman in her early 60s. She cared for her grandchildren all day, cooked, cleaned, smiled through it all. She never complained. At night, when the house was finally quiet, she'd step into the shower, not too long, not too cold, just enough to feel clean before she slipped into bed. One evening, she felt a strange numbness in her left arm. She thought she'd just been scrubbing too hard. An hour later, she couldn't lift her spoon. By morning, she couldn't speak clearly. No warning, no pain, just stillness, like a curtain falling quietly over her life. The diagnosis: ischemic stroke, likely triggered by a drop in blood pressure, followed by a sudden rise. Her doctor asked about her health, her stress, her habits, and in that quiet conversation, she remembered all the little signs she had ignored: the fatigue, the moments of breathlessness, the occasional blurring of vision she thought was just tired eyes. The body remembers what the mind ignores, and health doesn't shout, it whispers. It gives you tiny chances to listen before it forces you to stop. I don't say this to scare you. I say it because there's still time to notice, still time to soften the edges of your daily life, still time to shift how you move through the hours before bed, not by avoiding the shower, but by respecting the body you bring into it. Are you hydrated? Are you warm? Is your blood pressure steady? Have you allowed yourself even a moment of stillness before you stepped under the water, or did you carry the whole weight of your day into the stream without pause? Stroke isn't always the body's enemy. Sometimes it's just the final signal, the one loud enough that we can't ignore it anymore. And long before it arrives, there are signs, subtle, familiar, brushed aside. But if you learn to listen, truly listen, you might hear them whispering long before anything breaks. Because health isn't just about what you do. It's about how gently you treat the life inside you, even when no one else is watching. Especially then. Some people think stress is loud, that it shows up as shouting, crying, or dramatic breakdowns. But the most dangerous kind is silent. It hides in your shoulders, in the clench of your jaw, in the way your breath never quite fills your lungs anymore. You carry it, day after day, like a small stone in your pocket. At first, it feels like nothing. But with time and enough stones, you start to walk with a tilt. You don't notice the weight until your body does, and that's what many people forget when they talk about stroke. They look for one single cause, one dramatic trigger, but often it's the slow erosion. The nervous system, worn thin by years of unrest. The blood vessels, stiff from chronic pressure. The heart, beating just a little faster than it should. All of it becomes a field of dry grass, waiting for a spark. Sometimes that spark is physical, like stepping into a cold shower after a long, hot day. Sometimes it's emotional, an argument, a piece of bad news. But most often, it's invisible. A mix of fatigue, habit, and quiet overload that tips the balance just enough. I once had a patient, a man in his 40s, lean, active, didn't smoke, didn't drink much. He worked late, always on the go. He said he handled stress well, never lost control. He told me, but control isn't peace, and calm on the outside doesn't mean calm on the inside. He'd come home past midnight, too wired to sleep. So he'd shower, scroll his phone, lie in bed with thoughts still racing. He thought the shower helped him relax, but his blood pressure was always slightly elevated, and his body never had a real chance to reset. Then one morning, he woke up with blurred vision and a mild slur in his voice. He drove himself to the hospital, thinking it was just exhaustion. It wasn't. It was a mild stroke, what we call a transient ischemic attack. A warning shot, not fatal, not disabling, but clear enough to shake something loose in him. He asked me the same question. Many others have. Was it the shower? And again, I told him, it wasn't the shower alone. It was everything that came before it. All the tired nights, all the skipped meals, all the tension he didn't know how to let go of. You see, the body has limits, but it's patient. It doesn't scream at you the first time you overdo it. It waits, hoping you'll notice the fatigue, the stiffness, the tension behind your eyes, hoping you'll slow down before it has to stop you. That's the hardest part of my job. Watching people treat their lives like they're temporary, as if their health is something they can negotiate with, as if sleep, rest, recovery are luxuries, not necessities. But stroke doesn't care how busy you are. It doesn't care about your deadlines, your routines, your good intentions. It only responds to conditions. It responds to pressure, inflammation, imbalance. And once it begins, the clock doesn't tick forward, it ticks sideways, changing everything in an instant. So when someone asks me, is it dangerous to shower late at night? I don't answer with fear. I answer with context. I ask them how they're living the rest of the day. Are they giving their body space to breathe? Are they moving through life like someone who wants to stay in it for a long time, or are they just surviving? Waiting for permission to rest, because it's not just about what you do. It's about when you do it, and more importantly, how your body is doing before you do it. A cold shower at midnight might not mean much to a rested, calm, balanced person, but to someone with underlying hypertension, chronic stress, and poor sleep, that same shower can become a tipping point. Not because the act is wrong, but because the body is no longer strong enough to absorb the shock. That's why awareness matters more than fear, because once you understand what your body's been holding, you begin to move differently, not out of anxiety, but out of respect, like someone who finally realizes they've been holding their breath for too long, and slowly begins to exhale. There's something sacred about the late hours of the night. Everything slows, the lights dim, the streets quiet down, and inside you, whether you notice or not, the body begins to soften too. Your blood pressure lowers, your heart beats a little slower, your brain shifts gears, preparing not just for sleep, but for healing. Because night is when the real work begins. Not the kind you do at your desk, but the kind your body does behind the scenes. Repairing tissues, balancing hormones, flushing toxins, resetting the quiet rhythms that keep you alive. Without you ever needing to ask. And so, when people ask me about night showers, I always come back to one question. Are you interrupting a process you don't even know is happening? Because when the body is winding down, sudden stimulation doesn't just feel jarring. It can throw the entire system off course. Especially cold exposure, a cold shower, even a cool one, acts like an alarm bell. Your skin contracts, blood vessels narrow. The sympathetic nervous system kicks in. Fight or flight, and in that moment, everything your body was trying to let go of comes rushing back. For some people, that stimulation feels good. It sharpens them, wakes them up. And yes, there are even studies showing cold showers improve alertness and mood. But the truth is, timing is everything. What helps in the morning can harm at night because your body isn't in the same state. What energizes you when the sun is rising can overload you when the sun is long gone. I've seen this, especially in older patients, people with high blood pressure, people recovering from long-term stress. They don't always know how fragile their vessels have become. They don't always realize that their circulatory system, the highways of life flowing through their chest, brain, and limbs, have lost some of their flexibility. And when you shock that system with a cold surge of water, the vessels constrict suddenly, blood pressure rises, and in rare, but very real cases, that spike is enough to trigger a stroke. You won't always feel it right away. There may be no dizziness, number collapse, no warning, just a tightening, a numbness, a strange heaviness the next morning, and it's easy to ignore. Because the body doesn't make announcements, it just adapts. Until it can't. Someone once told me, but I feel more refreshed when I shower late. And I believe them, because there's comfort in ritual. There's power in the feeling of being clean before bed. But I always ask, what's the cost of that comfort? Especially if the water is cold, the room is chilled, and the body is already drained from the day. There are ways to listen, subtle, patient ways. You check the temperature of the water. Is it truly warm? Not just to your skin, but to your system. You notice how your heart feels after, calm or slightly accelerated. You pay attention to your sleep, deeper or more restless, because every action sends ripples through the body. And late at night, the water moves differently. If your body were a stream, then nightfall is when the current slows, leaves settle, sediment rests. And what happens if you throw a stone into still water? It stirs everything back up, not violently, but enough to undo what nature was trying to settle. So no, I won't tell you not to shower at night, but I will ask you to approach that moment with care. Not like a habit, but like a ritual. Because your body is not a machine to be cleaned. It's a landscape to be preserved. And the older we get, the more gently we must tread, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Out of the quiet understanding that healing doesn't happen in force. It happens in stillness. There's something cruel about high blood pressure. Not in how it strikes, but in how it hides. You can live with it for years, decades even, and never feel a thing. No pain, no dizziness, no warning that your arteries are hardening, that your heart is working overtime, that your brain is quietly at risk. That's why we call it the silent killer, because it doesn't knock on your door. It slips in through the cracks of your routine and makes a home there in your late nights, your missed checkups, your skipped meals, and by the time you feel its presence, it's not pressure anymore, it's damage. I've met people who were shocked by their first stroke. They said, "But I felt fine." They never fainted, never had chest pain. They were still walking, working, even laughing the night before, and then, one morning, their body changed. A hand that wouldn't move, a mouth that felt foreign, a thought they couldn't quite finish, and in the scan, we'd see it. The signs of years they didn't know they were losing, tiny vessels, stiff and narrowed, a brain that had been begging for better blood flow, but doing its best anyway, until it couldn't anymore. That's the danger. Not the drama, but the delay, the long gap between what's happening and what you feel. And here's where it ties back to night showers. Because when blood pressure is already elevated, and you may not even know it, sudden changes in temperature, posture, or stress can tip the scale. You step into the bathroom. Maybe you've just had a salty dinner, or you're still tense from the day. You shower quickly, maybe even in cold water. Your blood vessels constrict, your heart rate jumps a little, and for most people, that's where it ends. A quick reset. But for someone whose pressure has been quietly climbing for years, that moment isn't harmless. It's a shift, a sudden pull on a system already stretched too thin. The vessels in the brain are delicate. They depend on balance. When pressure gets too high, they're more likely to rupture. When flow becomes erratic, they're more likely to clot. And both of those, hemorrhagic and ischemic strokes, can begin with what feels like a normal night. So no, showering at night doesn't cause high blood pressure, but it can press on the cracks already forming beneath the surface, especially when combined with other silent habits, like never checking your numbers, like saying, "I feel fine," as if that's the whole story. I remember a woman in her late 50s. She came in with slurred speech and weakness on her right side. She had no history of stroke, no history of heart problems, but her blood pressure was 190 over 110, and she never knew. She thought her tiredness was just age, her shortness of breath just stress. She never had time to slow down until her body forced her to, and when I asked about her routine, she said she showered at night, cold water, fast, because it woke her up after long days of taking care of others. She didn't know she was walking through her days on a wire, one that could snap with just the right tension. So if you're listening now, and you've never checked your blood pressure, or haven't in years, maybe now is the time. Not because you're sick, but because you care about your body, your life, the people who'd miss you if something changed. You deserve to know what's happening inside you, not because knowledge is a shield, but because awareness is the beginning of peace, the kind that comes from not being surprised anymore, the kind that lets you move through the night without fear, with gentleness. We live by the clock, wake at 6, work by 8, eat at noon, but your body follows a different rhythm, a rhythm older than alarms, wiser than routines, a rhythm set by light, by rest, by the quiet choreography of hormones and heartbeats. This rhythm, your circadian rhythm, isn't just about sleep. It governs almost everything. Your blood pressure, your body temperature, your immune system, your mood. It tells your body when to rise, when to slow, when to repair, and when to let go. And at night, especially late at night, your body enters a very different state. It's not just tired, it's open to healing, to recalibrating blood pressure, to flushing toxins from the brain, to softening the walls that hold you together. But when you disrupt that process, even with something as simple as a shower, especially if it's sudden, stimulating, or cold, you can interrupt more than comfort. You can confuse the rhythm itself, you see. Your blood vessels relax at night, your heart rate drops, your nervous system shifts from fight or flight to rest and digest. But a cold or even lukewarm shower at the wrong moment can reverse that shift. It activates your sympathetic system, raises blood pressure, narrows blood vessels, sends your body a message it wasn't expecting. Wake up, something's wrong. And if your system is already vulnerable, if you've been carrying quiet stress all day, if your vessels are stiff, if your heart is tired, that confusion can create friction, the kind of friction that sometimes ends in a clot, or a rupture, or a silence that wasn't meant to come yet. The body keeps time. It knows when to cool down, when to let go of tension, when to prepare for dreams. But we don't always listen. We take our energy into the night. We take our busyness, our screens, our thoughts, and we expect the body to adapt to carry us anyway. And most of the time, it does. It adjusts quietly, but just because something's been working doesn't mean it's working well. And every time you ignore the rhythm, you ask your body to carry the weight of imbalance just a little longer. I once knew a man in his 70s. He was disciplined, same bedtime, same routine, but he never thought about timing. He'd exercise at 9 p.m., shower at 10, still felt strong, still felt sharp, but over time, sleep became harder. His morning pressure rose without explanation. His heart began skipping in ways he couldn't feel. Until one day, it didn't skip. It stopped, briefly, but long enough to change how he moved through the world. And when we looked deeper, we saw a nervous system out of sync, a heart that never truly rested because the signals it needed, darkness, quiet, warmth, stillness, were constantly being interrupted. And I thought about how many people do the same, not out of neglect, but out of habit. And I wondered, how many of them will never know the rhythm they're living against until it breaks? That's why I say this not with warning, but with invitation. Can you begin to honor the timing your body was built around? Not perfectly, not rigidly, but softly, intentionally, by noticing when your breath slows, when your eyes begin to feel heavy, by treating night not as something to push through, but as something to surrender into. You may still shower, but perhaps earlier. Perhaps with warmth instead of shock. Perhaps in a way that works with your body's rhythm, not against it, because healing doesn't happen in noise, it happens in rhythm, and the more you respect that rhythm, the more your body responds not with fear, but with trust. Sometimes people come to me and say, "Doc, I don't feel sick, but I don't feel right either." They're not in pain, but they're always just a little tired, a little foggy, a little behind their own breath. And when I look at their charts, their blood pressure's a little high, cholesterol's creeping up. They've gained a few pounds without changing their diet, but nothing sounds the alarm loud enough. So they go on, they push through, they chalk it up to age, to stress, to not sleeping well. And then one day, something happens. A stroke, a heart scare, and they say, it came out of nowhere. But it didn't come out of nowhere, it came from the everyday, from years of sleeping late, of skipping quiet, of showering fast at midnight, just to feel human again. It came from treating the body like a machine instead of a living rhythm. You see, stroke doesn't always announce itself with drama. Sometimes it whispers. It whispers through the headache you ignore, the numbness you blame on sleeping funny, the off-balance moment you shake off, the slurred word you correct before anyone notices. It's not about fear. It's about paying attention before your body has to shout. And nighttime is when your body whispers the loudest. That's why what you do and don't do before bed matters more than you think. A hot, calm shower at 8 p.m. might soothe the system, but a cold blast at 11:30 after a stressful day, when your heart's already taxed, can trigger a chain your body isn't ready for. Especially if you're older, especially if you already carry silent risks, especially if no one's Ever told you how these little things connect? And isn't that what most people miss? We've been taught to watch for big signs, but not to respect the small ones. The fatigue that becomes familiar, the sleep that feels less restful, the moods that darken quietly, the need to keep doing, even when your body begs you to stop. Stroke doesn't start in a moment. It starts in a pattern, and part of that pattern is how we treat our nights, whether we use them to truly rest, or just to recover barely enough to do it all again. I once had a patient, mid-50s, high-functioning, successful, told me he was fine except for feeling worn thin. He'd shower late, sometimes fall asleep with wet hair, didn't think much of it. Until he blacked out one night after standing up from the bath. He was lucky, just a scare. But when we ran the tests, there were signs that his system had been under strain for a long time. Signs no one noticed, not even him, and he told me. No one ever said anything about how my routine could be hurting me. Not his fitness tracker, not his doctor, not the health videos he watched. Because we don't often talk about how we live. We just focus on the diseases when they appear. But by then, it's late, so I'm saying this now, not to alarm, but to open a small door, a chance to shift the path before it hardens, to see that your routines aren't neutral. They're either adding to your strength or quietly draining it. And if you've been feeling tired for too long, if your nights don't feel restful, if your mornings feel like a fight, maybe it's time to listen before something breaks. Maybe it's not just stress. Maybe it's your body's quiet request for something simpler, softer, slower, because stroke isn't just a medical event. It's often the final punctuation on a story your body's been trying to tell for years. The good news? You can rewrite the ending, but only if you notice the sentence you're in right now. So what should you do? Should you stop showering at night altogether? Not necessarily, because the truth isn't black and white. It's about context, about your body's current state, about timing, water temperature, and what your nervous system needs when the day ends. Let's begin simple. If you love night showers, don't panic. But ask yourself this: when do you usually shower? Right before collapsing into bed? When your body is already fatigued, your mind's still spinning? Or is it earlier in the evening, after dinner, before the world turns too quiet, a time when your body can still process the shift? Timing matters. A shower at 8:30 p.m. is very different from one at midnight, because your body, just like nature, follows rhythms. Hormones begin preparing for rest. Blood pressure lowers, heart rate slows. Sudden stimulation, like a hot or cold shower too late, can jolt the system, especially in older adults, or anyone with hidden cardiovascular strain. Now let's talk temperature. Extreme heat or cold isn't ideal before bed, not if your goal is to protect your vascular health. A warm shower, not hot, helps dilate blood vessels gently. It tells your nervous system, it's safe now, you can let go. But cold water, especially sudden, especially when your body's already tense or the room is cold, can cause a spike in blood pressure. In some, it can trigger vasoconstriction, narrowing of the blood vessels, which, in rare but real cases, may contribute to stroke or heart strain, especially if your body was already walking a tightrope you didn't know was there. So here's the practical advice. Try to finish your shower at least 1 to 1.5 hours before bedtime. Use warm water, not scalding, not icy. Dry your body thoroughly, especially your head, neck, and feet. Never go to bed with wet hair, especially in a cold room. And if you've had a stressful day, don't rush the shower. Use it as a ritual, not a task. Let the water wash off more than just sweat. Let it rinse the tension too. If you take medications for blood pressure, diabetes, or heart issues, be even more mindful, because your body may already struggle with regulation at night. Adding a sudden thermal shift could be enough to tip the balance. Now let's take it one level deeper. Nighttime isn't just a time of rest. It's when your body repairs, when your brain clears out waste, when your heart gets to relax from the workday pressure. So everything you do in the hour before sleep either helps that process or disturbs it. A night shower done right can actually support this healing. But done wrong, too late, too harsh, it becomes another silent stressor. Another link in a long invisible chain that one day tightens into a crisis. I've seen it, and I wish more people knew. Because stroke isn't about the big things alone. It's the accumulation of little choices. And if there's one gift I can offer you as someone who's walked beside many patients through their wake-up calls, it's this. You don't have to wait for one. You can change course tonight, not through fear, but through awareness, by making space for your body to speak before it screams. Let me tell you a story. It's not dramatic. It's not the kind of tale that makes headlines, but it's the kind I've heard in different forms, again and again, told by families in quiet waiting rooms, by patients whose eyes finally hold more questions than denial. There was a man, let's call him Mr. Lamb, early 60s, retired engineer, still sharp, still active. His routine was simple. Dinner at 7. A hot shower on 10:30, bed by 11. Nothing strange, right? Except he had high blood pressure, controlled by medication, but not truly understood. He often skipped breakfast, drank coffee first thing, and stayed up late reading the news on his tablet in bed. The stress of the world pouring into him, night after night. One day, he woke up feeling off, not dizzy, not in pain, just slower, like his thoughts were wrapped in cotton. His wife noticed he was holding the toothbrush in the wrong hand, and his speech had a strange rhythm, not slurred, just different. They brushed it off. He was just tired, they thought, maybe. The weather. 2 days later, he collapsed in the kitchen. The stroke had started earlier. What he felt that morning. That was his warning, his chance to listen. But like most of us, he didn't know how. No one told him that mini-strokes, or TIAs, often whisper. They don't scream. They don't knock you over. They nudge, gently, silently, waiting for you to notice. He recovered, thankfully, but he told me later, if I had known that a mild headache and some confusion were signs, I would have gone in. I would have listened to my body. I wouldn't have waited for it to shout. And that's what I want you to take from this, because the link between night showering and stroke, it's not in the shower alone. It's in the pattern of ignoring small signals. It's in the accumulated neglect of what your body tries to tell you. You feel chilled after a shower, but think it's nothing. You get lightheaded standing up, but brush it off. You forget a word and blame age, but what if, just what if, those were signs that your brain and your blood vessels are under more strain than you realize? And the shower, done too late, too hot, or too cold, was the final straw on a system already burdened? This is not fear-mongering. This is quiet truth, learned through stories like Mr. Lamb's, and hundreds like his. If your body feels different, listen. If your routine leaves you exhausted, ask why. If your nights are restless, if your mornings feel foggy, don't normalize it, explore it. Your health doesn't just collapse in one moment. It fades slowly, like a dimming light. Unless someone switches the bulb or opens the window, you have that power, long before a stroke reminds you how fragile we really are. So what now? After all the stories, all the possibilities, all the warnings whispered between the lines, What should you actually do? Tonight, tomorrow, the next time you feel the urge to wash away the day with a late-night shower? Let's start. Here, no, showering at night doesn't directly cause a stroke, not in a clean 101 cause and effect way, but in the real world where small habits stack up, where stress, poor sleep, high blood pressure, and silent warning signs quietly simmer, it can become the tipping point, especially when done under the wrong conditions. So rather than fear the shower, respect the context. Here are 5 gentle shifts, small, doable, and maybe even life-changing. 1. Shift your shower earlier if you can. Try moving it to before 9 p.m. Give your body time to cool down and stabilize. Before bed, hot water raises your body temperature and dilates blood vessels. If you jump straight into bed after, your blood pressure may fluctuate unpredictably, especially dangerous for older adults or those with hypertension. 2. Mind the water temperature. Avoid water that's too hot or too cold. Extreme temperature shifts are like a jolt to your circulatory system. Aim for lukewarm, warm enough to soothe. Not so hot it steams up your mirror and flushes your face. 3. Dry thoroughly and warm up slowly. After the shower, don't rush. Use a warm towel. Wear socks. Keep the room cozy. Avoid going straight from hot water to a cold bed or an air-conditioned room. The shock to your body may cause sudden vessel constriction or stress your heart. 4. Don't ignore how you feel. If you feel dizzy, chilled, fatigued, or mentally off after your shower, take it seriously. Sit down, hydrate, rest, and if it persists, don't wait to get checked. Your body doesn't lie, it just speaks quietly. 5. Treat your nighttime routine like medicine. Sleep, blood pressure, mental clarity, they all begin with what you do before bed. So wind down without screens, avoid heavy meals late, and use your shower not just to clean your body, but to signal safety to your nervous system. Turn it into a ritual of care, not a careless afterthought. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you because I've seen too many people, good people, careful people, be blindsided by something they thought only happened to other people. And in most of their stories, there's always a moment, a single night, a tiny sign, a choice they wish they'd pause to reconsider. So maybe tonight, that small choice is yours. Not because showering is dangerous, but because your health, your awareness, your routines deserve more attention than you've been taught to give. Not panic, not fear, just presence. Let's slow down for a moment, because if you're wondering, does this really apply to me? The answer is, it depends. The truth is, not everyone reacts the same way to a nighttime shower. For some, it's just another habit. For others, it could quietly add stress to a body already on edge. So who should pay closer attention? Let me walk you through the groups I worry most about. 1. People with high blood pressure. If your blood pressure is already unstable, sudden changes in temperature, especially a hot shower followed by a cold room, can cause your vessels to constrict suddenly. This sharp shift can trigger dizziness, arrhythmia, or even lead to a spike that sets off a stroke. And here's the hard part. Most people with early-stage hypertension don't even know they have it. So if you haven't had your pressure checked in a while, maybe tonight is the time to start. 2. Older adults, especially over 60 as we age. Our vascular system becomes less elastic. The body doesn't regulate temperature or blood pressure as efficiently. This means the simple act of showering, especially at night, can create circulatory stress. Not immediately noticeable, but significant over time. I've seen patients in their 70s and 80s faint in the bathroom, and it often starts with nothing more than feeling a little off after bathing. 3. People with diabetes or neuropathy, ETH. You have diabetes, your nerve sensitivity, especially in the feet and hands, might be reduced. This makes it harder to sense temperature correctly. Hot water might feel lukewarm, which raises the risk of overheating without knowing it. Combined with circulatory issues already common in diabetes, that post-shower fatigue or lightheadedness isn't something to ignore. 4. People with chronic stress or sleep disorders, when your nervous system is constantly on edge. Even a hot shower at the wrong time can become overstimulating. You might not fall asleep better. You might sleep worse, and over weeks or months. This stress debt compounds, elevating your stroke risk quietly, not through one dramatic event, but through dozens of nights where your body never truly rests. 5. Anyone with a history of stroke or mini-stroke, TIA. This one should go without saying. If you've had a warning sign before, you must treat every habit as either a risk or a safeguard, and for you, showering late, especially alone, or in extreme temperatures, might not be worth the gamble. We often think of risk as something dramatic, but in medicine and in life, it's usually more subtle, like a tightrope walk you didn't know you were on, until one misstep shifts everything. That's why awareness matters more than fear. Because when you know what your body's quietly telling you, you get to make choices that protect, not just react. This isn't about giving up comfort. It's about respecting your body's limits and learning to live in tune with it, not in denial. Let me ask you something. Why do you shower at night? Maybe it's a habit passed down from childhood. Maybe it's the only quiet moment you get in a busy day. Or maybe it's just what everyone around you does, so you never questioned it. But here's something most people overlook: the impact of culture and climate on our daily rituals. What feels normal in one country can be dangerous in another. Let me explain. In tropical and humid countries, places like Southeast Asia, South America, or parts of Africa, nighttime showers are more than hygiene. They're a way to cool the body after a hot, sticky day. The air is warm, even at night, so stepping out of the shower doesn't cause a major drop in body temperature. Your blood vessels stay relaxed, your core heat stable. The risk of vascular shock is lower for many people here. A night shower helps them sleep better, not worse. But now, let's go somewhere else. In colder or drier climates, Northern Europe, parts of North America, or even mountainous regions in Asia, the story changes. You step into a hot shower to warm up, but then walk barefoot on cold tiles, or dry off in a drafty room. Your body undergoes rapid vasoconstriction. The blood vessels narrow suddenly. And in someone with underlying conditions, that quick thermal shift can trigger dizziness, heart strain, or even a cerebrovascular event. It's not about the shower itself. It's about what happens after, when wet skin meets cold air and unprepared blood vessels panic. Tradition versus physiology. In Japan, people often take warm baths at night. But notice, they also warm the bathroom. Some even preheat the toilet seat or floors. They understand the importance of thermal comfort, even if they don't say it in medical terms. Compare that to someone in a modern urban apartment, where the bathroom is freezing in winter, and the water heater runs out halfway through. The experience is not just uncomfortable, it's physiologically jarring. So what's the point? The point is, don't judge a health habit by how common it is in your country. Judge it by how your body responds, and by whether the conditions around you support that response. If you live somewhere cold, and your blood pressure is high, a hot night shower may not be as harmless as you think. If your house is warm and your health is stable, it might be perfectly fine. It's not about fear. It's about context, and context, in health, can mean the difference between thriving quietly and collapsing unexpectedly. In the next part, we'll explore how to shower at night more safely, because for many people, giving up the habit isn't realistic, but adjusting it could be life-saving. Now that we understand the potential risks, let's not swing to extremes. You don't need to live in fear of your own shower, but you do need to approach it with more awareness, because often, it's not about stopping the habit, it's about modifying it just enough to protect your brain, your heart, and your future. So here are a few simple but powerful shifts. 1. Keep your feet warm before and after. Sounds small, doesn't it? But cold feet are one of the fastest ways your body loses heat. When your feet are cold, your blood vessels constrict, and in older adults or those with hypertension, that can spike blood pressure suddenly. So wear slippers to the bathroom. Put on socks right after drying. Don't stand barefoot on cold tiles, especially if your blood pressure isn't well controlled. It's not a superstition. It's thermoregulation science in action. 2. Avoid sudden temperature shifts before stepping into the shower. Let the water run for a few seconds to warm the air. Keep the bathroom door closed to trap heat. Better yet, gently warm the room beforehand if you can, especially in winter. And after you finish, don't rush out into a cold hallway. Wrap yourself in a towel or robe first. Give your body time to adjust. Strokes don't need drama to happen. Sometimes they arrive on quiet feet, through tiny shocks to the system. 3. Listen to your body's rhythm. Are you tired, dizzy, or weak before you shower? Did you just finish a heavy meal? Is your heart racing more than usual? These are not good times to bathe. Your body is already adjusting to internal stressors, and adding heat, steam, or thermal contrast might overwhelm it. Shower when your body feels calm, not when you're on edge, overloaded, or already running on fumes. 4. End with gentle cooling. Not a sudden stop rather than turning off the water abruptly. Let it gradually cool for the last 10 to 15 seconds. This helps your body transition from the heated environment of the shower to the cooler air outside. That tiny detail could reduce the strain on your blood vessels and heart, especially if you're older or already dealing with hypertension or diabetes. It's not about being fragile, it's about being wise. 5. Reconsider the timing. Ask yourself, do you need to shower late at night, or is it just habit? Could you shift it a little earlier, maybe before dinner, when your body is still alert, your blood pressure still stable, and your bathroom less cold? Sometimes, better timing is the easiest fix, and no one talks about it. In the next part, we'll go deeper into who is most at risk, because truthfully, not everyone has the same level of danger, and knowing your personal risk profile is the most powerful thing you can do. Let's make one thing clear. Not every night shower leads to a stroke, and not every person is equally at risk. That's why blanket advice can be misleading. What's harmless for one body may be dangerous for another. So instead of fearing the act, you should focus on understanding your own vulnerabilities. Because stroke isn't about one choice, it's about how that choice interacts with your current health. Let's look closer. 1. If you have high blood pressure, this is the group one worry about the most. Because high blood pressure is a silent trap. You feel fine until you're not. When your arteries are already under pressure, a cold shock from stepping out of a hot shower, or a sudden rise in heart rate from hot steam in a tight space, can tip the balance. A stroke doesn't need a bad day. Sometimes it just needs a vulnerable vessel and one wrong moment. If you have hypertension, night showers aren't forbidden, but they must be approached like you're walking on ice, carefully, slowly, with your body in mind. 2. If you have heart disease or atrial fibrillation, your heart is the rhythm keeper of your body. When its rhythm falters, as in a FIB, or when the muscles are weak, as in heart disease, sudden temperature changes can trigger chaos. You may not notice, but your heart might. A stroke caused by a clot from AFib isn't loud at first. It can be a moment of blurred vision, a weak hand, or slurred words that slips past unnoticed until it returns with greater force. If you live with heart conditions, you need extra gentleness in your nightly routines, not fear, but respect for your body's limits. 3. If you've had a previous stroke or TIA, this is a red flag category, because if your brain has already shown signs of vulnerability, you must listen carefully now. A previous stroke or a mini-stroke, TIA, is not just a warning. It's your body saying, "I'm not as resilient as I once was." In these cases, avoiding night showers, especially in cold weather or when you're overtired, is not paranoia, it's protection. 4. If you have diabetes or poor circulation, diabetes affects more than your blood sugar. It quietly damages blood vessels and nerves, making your body less able to detect thermal shock or respond to it quickly. Add in poor circulation, common in both diabetics and older adults, and you have a system that doesn't adapt well to sudden temperature shifts. That's a hidden danger, especially in the quiet of the night, when blood pressure naturally dips and the body moves slower. 5. If you're over 60, even without diagnosed conditions, age alone changes how your body regulates temperature. Your vessels stiffen, your heart beats a little slower. Your reaction time isn't what it used to be. You might not feel the cold as quickly, but your body does, and it reacts more severely than you realize. So for older adults, a warm shower early in the evening is far safer than a late-night soak. Again, this isn't about fragility, it's about wisdom and honoring the truth of your current season of life. In Part 15, we'll gently walk through the most common warning signs that your body is under too much stress after a night shower, the signals many people overlook until it's too late. Let me ask you something. How often do you step out of a shower and feel off, but brush it aside? A little lightheadedness, a moment of blurred vision, a slight headache, even a racing heart. We've all had these experiences, but when they come after a shower, especially at night, you shouldn't ignore them, because sometimes your body whispers before it screams. 1. Dizziness or lightheadedness. This is one of the earliest and most common warning signs, especially if you're standing up too fast from a hot bath or stepping into a cold room afterward. Your blood pressure may have dropped, or your circulation may not be compensating fast enough. And if you already have underlying health issues, like hypertension, anemia, or vascular problems, that momentary dizziness isn't just fatigue, it's a red flag. 2. Sudden blurred vision or double vision. Your eyes are connected to your brain more than you realize. When your brain isn't getting enough blood flow, or when blood vessels spasm from cold shock, your vision is often the first to respond. Don't brush it off as just shampoo in the eyes. If your vision shifts after a shower, especially at night, pay attention. 3. Heart palpitations or irregular beat. A warm shower should relax your heart. But if you feel your chest flutter, if your pulse becomes irregular or your heart races without reason, that's a signal of distress. This is especially dangerous for people with known heart rhythm disorders like a FIB, where blood clots can form quietly and travel to the brain. Even a few skipped beats after a warm shower in a closed bathroom could be the start of something more serious. 4. Numbness or tingling in arms, face, or legs. Most people associate this with sleeping in a bad position. But if it happens after bathing, especially if it's one-sided, don't assume it's nothing. Even brief tingling or numbness can be a sign of a TIA, a mini-stroke that lasts a few minutes and leaves no obvious trace, but warns of a major one to come. 5. Trouble speaking or understanding. Have you ever struggled to find words right after getting out of the shower? If your thoughts feel foggy or your words come out slower than usual, this could be neurological fatigue. But in vulnerable individuals, it can also be a stroke symptom. Even if it clears up in a few minutes, it's worth noticing, because the body remembers, even when we try to forget. 6. Sudden fatigue or weakness, not just tired from a long day, but a deep, heavy fatigue. A sense that your limbs are harder to move, that your thoughts are slower to form. This is one of the most overlooked post-shower symptoms people blame the warmth of the water or the lateness of the hour, but in some cases, it's the body reacting to stress or fighting to stabilize its internal systems. You don't need to panic if any of these signs appear once, but if they happen consistently. After night showers, your body is giving you information, and your job is to listen. In Part 16, we'll explore practical, doctor-approved tips to make night showers safer, so you can still enjoy your evening routine without putting your health at risk. So after all this talk about risks and hidden triggers, you might be wondering, does that mean I should stop showering at night altogether? Not necessarily. You see, the goal was never to scare you. It was to bring to light a few quiet truths that often get buried under habits and convenience. And like most things in health, it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it. So if showering at night is part of your lifestyle, because you work late, because it helps you sleep, or because it's the only peace you get in a busy day, then there are simple ways to protect yourself. Let me share what I often tell my patients, especially those over 40, or anyone already dealing with high blood pressure, heart disease, or poor circulation. First, don't shock your body if you've been in a cold room or sitting still for hours. Don't walk straight into a freezing bathroom and blast cold water. Your blood vessels are already constricted, and a sudden thermal shift, cold to hot or hot to cold, can strain your nervous system. Instead, warm up your body gradually. Turn on the water first, let the steam fill the room, or run your hands and feet under warm water for a few seconds before stepping in. Second, avoid very hot showers late at night. I know it feels relaxing, but excessive heat dilates your blood vessels too quickly, causing your blood pressure to drop. Especially dangerous if you're already tired, dehydrated, or on medication. Aim for warm, not hot, and keep your showers short. Under 10 minutes is usually enough. Third, stay hydrated before and after. Even just a small glass of water can help your circulation stay stable, especially important before bedtime, when your body's regulation slows down. And finally, listen to your body's quiet language. If you feel lightheaded, dizzy, or unsteady, pause, sit down, breathe. Don't brush it off. Sometimes your body whispers before it screams. Showering at night isn't the villain, but how we prepare for it, how we treat the body afterward. That's what makes the difference. Your body is wiser than you think. It just needs you to meet it halfway. So if you're going to keep showering at night, do it mindfully. Let it be a ritual of care, not a routine of neglect. Because at the end of the day, it's not about fear. It's about awareness, and awareness, quietly practiced, can change everything.